Hi, this is Sherry Seiler, and I'm here to talk about spooky reads. Okay, so what do you think is spooky? And this is kind of a question. Is it horror, supernatural? And you love good mystery? Are mysteries spooky? Sometimes they are. So that's sort of like, what do you want to read in this spooky time period? I mean, a lot of people just first think about horror, but maybe you want to think about other things. So how many people, I mean, if you look at movies that you watched that were considered suspense or thrillers or science fiction, so how many people thought Alien was spooky? A lot of people. So here we go. Something like Illuminae. I'm trying to figure out how this one works there because it doesn't have the title there. Illuminae. Kind of like Aliens. So it's going to be listed as science fiction, but it's a spooky read. Other things people will think about is anything by Edgar Allan Poe. Did you know Edgar Allan Poe? They have an award called the Edgars that they give out every year. Best mystery. So his stuff is considered mystery, but you know it's kind of a macabre sort of mystery. And so I don't know if you read this in school or not, or if they still do, but one of the things like Agatha Christie's, and then there were none. You go to this island, and people get killed off one by one. You kind of know. Clue is a kind of like based on it as well. So is that considered a spooky read? So some of those suspense thrillers will be considered spooky. Now, then you can take something like Frankenstein. Okay, so this is the original Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Not your old movie thrillers of Frankenstein, but they considered it spooky. And the same thing with Dracula. Dracula, if you look at the original, and if you go on to Twilight and things like that, they were always a romance. So a lot of times we'll have the supernatural ones. A lot of times they have a romance involved, and it's more romantic. A little less spooky. And then you have something that's maybe, you might put in as fantasy or supernatural. Okay, so this is Ray Bradbury. Something Wicked This Way Came, This Way Comes. And it's about kind of a weird circus fair that shows up, when they just show up and they have a fair. And that can be a little spooky, haunted rides or whatever. The merry-go-round. Clowns. Think of clowns. Anyway. So, yeah. Another one is a fantasy book. Something like Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. I didn't find that particularly... It's not horror. It does have some spooky elements. We got the girl that kind of flies, and she looks spooky. And they're in an asylum, so, what? It's kind of... Some people find it spooky, and that might be as spooky as they want it to get. I'm one of those people. I don't like the jump scares. Okay, and then this here, Diviners by Libby Bray, considered supernatural. A lot of people find that spooky enough that they call it horror. But I listed it as supernatural. So you think witches, and sometimes there'll be some horror movies. It's got witches out of control, whatever. And yeah, they would consider those as horror. So it's kind of like, what genre do you like it in? Now, then we have ones that are specifically just called horror, like Coraline. Neil Gaiman's Coraline. Asylum. Who doesn't like Ghosts in the Asylum? I don't know. One of the ones, if you know, Darren Shan did the whole zombie series. Zombie. So this is considered one of the real spooky ones, real horror. Lord Loss. And then another one here. This one is, and you probably know this name, Rick Yancey. Okay, he is the monsternologist. Now, monsternologists, it sounds a little like a fantasy type of thing, but you got monsters. Why wouldn't you call it horror? And it's sort of got a little sciencey bit to it, because what they're doing is they're hunting down monsters, or they're monster hunters. But apparently, I guess it's got some real monsters in it and gore. So, and I'm not much for the gore end of it, but yeah. So a lot of these books that you wouldn't necessarily think are spooky are. I'm getting some reflection there from my glasses, and so yeah, we've got quite a few of them that are horror related. But then you have the same thing. You might be wanting the suspense, the thrillers. You might be wanting something more that's a spooky fantasy or a spooky science fiction. So, and then Coraline, like I said, sometimes it's the storyline that is spooky. Sometimes it involves those that it has ghosts in it or something of that. And then whether you're going to call it supernatural. And then you have a lot of them where they supposedly have spooky monsters or ghosts or whatever, and they turn out to be just some kind of a romance novel. It's a supernatural romance. So, pick what you like. And I don't have any problem with those. I actually like them. So it's all about what you want to read and what do you consider spooky. And as I said, I'm not really much for the jump scares. But then I like a psychological thriller. And so if you think of so they're hunting down a serial killer, and they're kind of getting into the mind of the serial killer and what makes him tick. It's scary. So anyway, it's all about what you want to read. But come in this month and check out something scary or spooky. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.